Well, ever since Mr. Kundra came out last March, I guess it was a year ago in March, that this became indoctrinated into our vocabulary. Everyone's excited about, what is it? How can I use it? How can I save money? So the idea of cost avoidance and actually doing cloud computing is something that month and, or should I say, a year and a half later is like a paradigm shift in government. So benefits could at the outset say, hey, I don't have to own any more infrastructure, I don't have to maintain that infrastructure, I can focus more on innovation. And the reality is you still have to have some role in understanding how your infrastructure and your data is going to be housed. So cloud computing offers the benefit of maybe doing less owning and more leasing of equipment, and that should in essence be freeing you up to do more of that innovative type of work that the government is lacking in. A lot of the knock on government at times is that we do so much to just keep the lights on. We don't do enough design, modernization, and enhancement. I think and I believe that cloud computing and this idea of a managed service environment or paradigm, again, is something that is awfully attractive. And that's, to me, at the high level, the benefit of cloud. It's that transformational shift perspective that we see every several years, which is with this evolving role of IT, to look at and say, maybe there's a different way I can do my business more efficiently, more effectively, and streamline some of my daily operational duties. First thing that comes to mind with regard to cloud is what I hear, at least, I'm not so much a proponent of this, is security. Folks feel very comfortable with owning equipment, with knowing where their data resides on a specific box, on a specific drive, in a specific room. Security of the data, and I think that's where the challenges of securing data versus securing infrastructure, you can draw a line there and say, well, I don't necessarily need to know where the data resides as long as I have a service level agreement in place and know that the data can be maintained in a much more secure manner than I do it myself. So again, it's kind of releasing this belief that I'm better at securing my data, meaning I as the data center owner, I as the federal agency. And security is just something that comes into the debate as to is it something that someone can do better than I can? So it's a bit of the ego comes into play there, but the belief that someone else can maintain my infrastructure might make sense. But then again, I don't know if I trust them with the data, and we have to move past that. So that's a challenge. Another one that folks tend to, or at least I hear around the circuit in the IT community, is this idea of, okay, is it really cost savings or is it cost avoidance? And the procurement aspects. A lot of folks want to dabble in the cloud, but there's this belief that I need to build a test lab, that I need to acquire products, that I need to do some testing, and that can take a while when it comes to acquisition of the goods or the services or the equipment, or even just the hiring of contractors to help us think about it. And I think when we get caught up into this cycle of, boy, just to get thinking about cloud could be expensive in terms of hiring contractor support, having people come in, having meetings after meetings after meetings. I mean, that's costly versus just starting to, quote unquote, break some glass, get used to using it, adopt it as an opportunity. And that's what we're seeing with those successful implementations of cloud. And that is, to me, a challenge, because the challenge itself, in other words, is to get started with cloud versus just talking about it. And that's something that I know for a fact is somewhat of a hindrance. Well, use cases are a big topic in government ever since Vivek Kundra came out and talked about his experiences with the cloud. There were months of education and awareness that is still ongoing. I mean, we're here today talking about cloud shootout. I think we're in year 2, where use cases are becoming more of the topic. And what we're trying to do is showcase a lot of the agencies and the work that's being done. So a couple in my world at the Department of Energy, we've got Dr. Rocio Alvarez at our Lawrence Berkeley Lab doing some wonderful things with Google Apps. Rob Gillen down at the Oak Ridge National Lab working with Microsoft's Azure solutions. Charlie Catlett at our Argonne National Lab working in concert with the folks out at Berkeley, the NERSC office as well, building, in essence, a private cloud called Magellan, which will be more for the high-performance computing environment. Kay Keehee and her group in the Office of Science working with Nimbus and the Amazon Cloud. And of course, we all know about the most recent announcement at GSA here with the application, or should I say the to-be implementation of Google Apps, and that's exciting. So those are high-level use cases, but what I found as chair of the Cloud Computing Advisory Council for the federal government, I have access to 70 folks across the departments, and we're learning about use cases on a regular basis. So the sharing of information, obviously I did some high-level, and these are in various levels of maturity as well. And that's what we just need to share. It's not to say this agency did it so well, and agency X is kind of struggling a bit. Everybody's deployment of cloud computing is going to vary, and I think it's these challenges, the questions you're asking, the barriers to entry, success stories that we're sharing at this stage of the game are what helping move the spindle, the barometer, if you will, forward on cloud. So those are some that come to mind, but sooner or later I think the question is not to be so prescriptive about, or do we need to be so prescriptive about cloud and government? The answer to me is no. It's start figuring out how it will support the mission of your various agency. My thoughts on the future of federal cloud kind of are evolving as much as I'm seeing the landscape evolve. I think we can use the example of cell phones. When we first started using cell phones or mobile phones, people were carrying them around in briefcases. If you can remember those days, I used to see people think it was the coolest thing, but the thing was as long as my forearm. But ultimately, we adopt to some of the good and the bad and the ugly with technology. And with cell phones, we became to realize, for example, that there's a value in having that mobile ability to communicate, whether through voice, video, and data. Nowadays, we carry the iPhone, for example. You can do online real-time video conferencing on the fly when you're walking on the streets of DC. Cloud computing has an infrastructure spin to it that is, to me, not as sexy as the concept of cloud computing. So like infrastructure, the stuff behind the walls, the boxes, the wires, the plumbing as we refer to it, that's the part that I think folks don't necessarily grasp as much as what it allows you to do ultimately. If we were to manage our services through the cloud and not have to worry about that and the expenditure related to just maintaining data and equipment and data centers, then that should free up, again to the earlier question, the opportunity to do more innovation. So cell phones have evolved to where now they're smartphones, they're not just cell phones anymore, right? I think the way we conduct our IT in the government, the byproduct of doing more innovation will be because we decided to say, let's don't make our business building data centers and hiring staff to support our specific needs. Most everybody in the government, or should I say, not most everybody, we all know we spend $80 billion a year on IT support and services. $80 billion, largest purchaser of IT, you hear that all the time. That number keeps going up. About a third of that is spent on infrastructure alone. If we can offload that expenditure by agency and start to really look at, let me offload that and treat it as a utility and focus on the mission of my department. I think that's where we're going to see this evolution of cloud really take effect and get to the sexy part of, wow, now I can do more. Now I can plan more. Now I can innovate more because I'm not worrying about that big expense of maintaining my equipment. I use the analogy of our electric bills, your gas bill, your phone bill. These are things as consumers, we just expect electricity to turn on when we flip the switch. We expect the internet to turn on when we flip on the computer. That's because we rely on infrastructure that we don't control. You pay your bill, you hope that they keep it together, stitched, patchwork together, however. You don't know, you don't care. You want the light on, you want the computer on, you want access to the internet. We're trying to get, I think that's what cloud computing offers. I think cloud computing is, again, about a paradigm shift, new way of doing business, and if we save money along the way, it might not be initially in a capital expenditure savings, because you're going to still pay someone to maintain your equipment. I think it's going to be something 5 years back we'll look and say, wow, look what we're doing differently as a result of this investment in cloud.